Google opened its doors on September 4th, 1998, founded by computer scientists Larry Page and Sergey Brin, while PhD students at Stanford University. They didn't invent the idea of an internet browser. Their significant contribution was that empty square box in the middle of your computer screen, allowing you to search for whatever you wanted. Until they came along, internet browsers tended to be limited to pre-selected categories, but they had a better idea, combining user-defined searches with a search solution ranking algorithm that they believed internet users would value. But how do you turn this valued service into a business model? That was a big question, and the answer did not happen overnight. It took 2 years for Google to launch AdWords in 2000, starting with just 350 advertisers, pioneering the market in pay-per-click advertising. That enabled Google to produce its first profits a year later, proving that internet search service could be a really lucrative business. At the time that Sergey and Larry started Google, there were many established technology companies, including other fledgling internet search engines, but they all failed to miss out on seeing what they saw and harnessing what would become one of the finest business models ever devised. 3 years after that, Google went public, with Page and Brin joining the ranks of billionaire unicorns soon after. As Google shows, business model design is a creative art that can offer material financial rewards. Welcome back to the Value Equation channel in our series, How to Get Business Rich. I'm Chris Volk, Value Equation author, creator of multiple successful public companies, and your guide to how to create business wealth and become business rich. If you're interested in business leadership, entrepreneurship, or investing, what I have to tell you will elevate your chances of becoming a multimillionaire. Financially speaking, business model design involves combining the 6 variables in the value equation to optimize current equity returns. Note that I did not say maximize. Optimal returns are those that can create the most wealth. Just trying to maximize your return could limit you to a smaller enterprise. Better to have a large company with lower equity returns than a small company having higher returns. Consider our earlier example of a newly developed restaurant having a current pre-tax equity return of 89.3%. That's better than Apple's 2024 current creation equity return of nearly 60%, but a restaurant company can never hope to address as large a market as Apple. Hence, there are only 3 members of the 2025 Forbes 400 list of wealthiest Americans who owe their gargantuan net worths to the restaurant industry. The value equation, which you've seen if you've been watching me, is basically a quick hack using 6 variables to determine current equity returns on equity creation cost. And current equity yields are the foundation for corporate wealth creation because they enable dividend payments. And they can serve as major drivers of cash flow per share growth. The higher the current equity returns, the higher the growth when free cash flow is reinvested into your potent business model for expansion. The higher the current equity returns, the greater the likelihood of higher equity valuation multipliers, with the number of times your company's equity is worth more than it costs to create. And when you combine a high equity value multiplier with a high current equity return, the greater will be your cash flow per share growth from external growth or raising new equity from shareholders at the current market price. So underlying the value equation hack are 6 variables that represent 3 universal underlying corporate efficiencies. And making your company more efficient is what return optimization is all about. The 3 efficiencies start with asset efficiency. Basically, this is the art of minimizing your overall business investment. All things being equal, the lower your business investment, the higher your current equity rate of return will be. Business investment includes the net assets of a company has to pay for that are funded with OPM and equity. Obvious components are furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and real estate. But don't forget inventory, or accounts receivable, or prepaid costs, and even cash. Reducing any or all these items lessens the amount of business investment you need. And don't forget the free money, where more is better. Free money includes accruals, trade payables, customer deposits, gift cards, and deferred taxes. Business investment also takes on the form of recurring maintenance capital expenditures, or maintenance CapEx. And again, the lower the better. Remember also that maintenance CapEx is the value equation variable where we insert the costs of closed locations or failed corporate acquisitions. The second efficiency is operating efficiency. This is the art of optimizing operating profits, which come from maximizing revenues and controlling operating expenses. Operating profits are a function of your operating profit margin as well as company revenues. Sales are a function of the number of orders you receive every year. the average size of each order, and the pricing you impose on the products and services that you provide. Operating margins will be impacted by pricing policy, economies of scale. That's where your relative costs at higher sales levels are likely to be lower, and cost control. All things equal, the greater your operating profits, the greater your current rate of return on equity. Finally, there's capital efficiency. This is the art of optimizing your mix of OPM and equity. Business models start with the first two efficiencies, which combine to compute an unlevered rate of return, or a current pre-tax equity creation yield, assuming there's no OPM, and then the capital stack is laid on top. The idea behind capital efficiency is to minimize OPM cost, but also to minimize the equity required. Again, all things equal, less equity will elevate current equity yields and cash flow growth per share. But the idea of capital stack optimization is not that simple. Using lots of OPM and little equity can be fine if there's plenty of free cash flow and margins for error. Likewise, OPM can come with strings attached that can limit corporate flexibility, which creates what's called an opportunity cost. And those kind of costs can be all too real. In my years of finance, I've seen companies that have achieved wild levels of financial success using hardly any equity, while others have failed despite having deployed large portions of equity. Whether your capital stack skews towards equity or OPM is not where risk is measured. Risk is measured in margin for error, access to liquidity, and corporate flexibility. Companies that integrate the three corporate financial efficiencies invariably create the most corporate wealth, which translates into shareholder multi-million-dollar fortunes, together with an ability to benefit other corporate stakeholders. The virtuous cycle begins with a customer, then turning towards investors, and finally towards other important stakeholders. How wealth is shared amongst shareholders and other stakeholders, employees chiefly, is often rightly debated. But that's not a part of this video series. What is beyond debate, though, is the linkage between corporate wealth and business model creation. And by now, you may be wondering about the characteristics of the most financially successful businesses that make them worth so much more than they cost to create. We'll address that soon as we explore further how to make some money and get business rich. Meanwhile, I'm Chris Volk. You can find me at christopherhvolk.com, and thank you for joining me on this business wealth creation journey.